This pre-calc video on section 2.2, solving quadratic equations by taking square roots. I've got 3 steps here to solving quadratics by taking square roots. Isolate the square, then take the square root, and then solve. Okay, so here's my problem number 1. And isolate the square. First of all, what you would want to know is that what is the square? What am I trying to isolate? I'm trying to isolate whatever is being raised to the power of 2. So x squared in this case is what I want to isolate. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4 to get the x squared term by itself. So I've got x squared equals 2. All right, now that I've isolated the square, now I'm going to take the square root. Take the square root of both sides. And please remember that when you do that, you have to do a positive, negative. There are 2 solutions when you do that. So that gives me x is equal to positive and negative radical 2. Keep in mind that you must remember everything about how to simplify radicals. No decimals will be allowed. Your answers have to be in simplest fraction, simplest radical form. For this problem, there is no simplification, but if this radicand, if the stuff underneath the radical had a factor that was a perfect square, you would have to simplify. Here's my next problem, and step 1, isolate the square. In this case, the square looks different. It's this whole binomial being raised to the power of 2, so this problem is going to look quite a bit different than the previous problem. Isolate the square. First, I want to divide both sides by 5. All right, now the square is isolated. Now I can square root both sides. Now square rooting the left just undoes the radical. Now I don't even need that parentheses right now. Square rooting the left just undoes the power of 2, I should say. And on the right square root, I have to do positive and negative radical 3. So that's step 2, take the square root of both sides. Step 3 is solve, and in this case, I do have to get x by itself, so I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So plus 3 plus 3. Okay, that 3 is not like terms with the radical 3, so the best we can do to put this in simplest form is to say 3 plus or minus radical 3. All right, you might want to pause the video and try these by yourself. With these problems, you do have to simplify the radical. So if you can remember how to do that, I'll show you my answers in just a second. All right, here I go. For problem 3, the square is already isolated. I'm just going to take the square root of both sides. Okay. Now, here's how I simplify that. A perfect square that's a factor of 40 is 4. So, oops, that should be a 4. So I'm going to take radical 40 and change it to radical 4 times radical 10. Square root of 4 is 2. All right, there we go. That's my answer right there. X is equal to positive and negative 2 radical 10. Okay. Next problem. I'm going to isolate the square. I'm going to need a couple of steps this time. First, I want to add 4. Then divide by 25. All right, now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. All right, you guys are freaking out right now, right? Because there's a fraction. Okay, to take the square root of 4 over 25, it's the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. All right, that's it for that video.